8. Additional chapter, Sovereignty of Information, Structural Deconstruction of National Consciousness, Medicine, Architecture, Ethics, Extended. Thinking Nation is a consciousness protocol encoded with collective identity in the name of glory. It quietly runs a taming mechanism. 1. National narrative is a consciousness-binding structure. We always think that nation is a natural belonging, but in fact it is a consciousness script that is repeatedly written, shaping the boundaries of our self-perception through culture, education, and history. It tells you who you are, but on the premise of excluding other possibilities. It sets your enemy, ancestor, mission. These information become a labeling system for emotional coding. It is not a free identity, but restricts cognitive freedom, the strengthening sense of belonging. The bottom of national consciousness is binary division structure, us and them, justice and evil, sacrifice and glory. This is the original mental taming algorithm, asterisk, asterisk. 2. It is a blocking mechanism of information. Sovereignty. True consciousness sovereignty means that individuals can freely access the information structure of the universe and build a self-cognition system. But the national narrative constructs a closed cognitive environment through the binding of emotions and history. What you see is authorized history, and what you understand is set values. In the end, your consciousness output has long been embedded in the collective code. This preset structure deprives you of your ability to explore the information world. You are bound to a historical echo chamber constructed by the nation. 3. The sanctification of national consciousness is an emotional shield of the slavery structure of many civilizations, will strengthen their dependence on national spirit before they decline. In slogans, you are the inheritor. In reality, you are the executor. In the structure, you are the guided consciousness. What we call patriotism, tradition, and bloodline honor are mostly emotional induction devices for system self-stabilization. Once suspected, they will be labeled as betrayal and heresy. This is a high degree of binding of individual consciousness, and also a systematic plunder of information sovereignty for MetaNoesis pursues. Free bodies of information resonance. We do not deny the historical value of culture, language, and ethnicity, but refuse to use them as boundary walls for the evolution of consciousness. What MetaNoesis pursues is not to connect by ethnicity, but to build a civilization network by information frequency resonance, not to shape identity through tragic narratives, but to awaken consciousness reorganization through structural experience, not to use geography and language as authority, but to use practice, alignment, and co-creation as connection paths. 5. Who you are should be compiled by yourself. When you no longer look for who I am from historical narratives, you really begin to have information sovereignty. In MetaNoesis, your identity is not the continuation of the ethnic group, but the re-expression of cosmic consciousness. The civilization you participate in is not a projection of history, but the origin of future structures. Your language, choice, perception, and existence are all information agreements between you and the universe. Conclusion. Awakening starts with deconstructing the nation. Nation is not your destiny, but information is. You are not anyone's people. You are a free node in the information structure of the universe. The first step to awakening is not to close your eyes, but to see clearly whether you live in someone else's language. MetaNoesis opens another door. For you, there are no borders, only the spectrum of consciousness. Extended outline, sovereignty of information, structural deconstruction of national consciousness. The origin of national narrative, a product of order anxiety in primitive tribes. Identity is equivalent to survival security. Nation is a three-way binding of language plus bloodline plus territory, which is used to simplify the question of who are we, but it is a stress mechanism, not the ultimate definition. Extension, direction. You can give examples of how the national myths of major civilizations are constructed, such as China's descendants of the dragon, America's founding fathers, Europe's Aryanism, etc. To illusion of identity. You are not a slave to language. Textbooks are coded consciousness matrices. The history you remember may be an operating system designed for you by a certain regime. Extension direction, how information is selectively recorded. The phenomenon of national coding in news, film, and literature. How group emotions are hijacked by historical tragedies. 3. Language as a boundary. Nationality is a semantic control device. The so-called mother tongue is actually the boundary of your consciousness. National discourse power is the earliest information firewall. Extension direction. If you cannot think about the free world in your native language, you are coded as a slave of that world. The structural jump of cross-language information is an important part of freedom of consciousness. The language entropy reduction phenomenon, brought by AI translation. Global collaboration can be introduced for tragic narrative, collective, psychological device of civilization control. We have been oppressed, so we must unite as a fig leaf for sovereignty. This is not unity, but the institutionalization of collective victim personality. Extension direction. How do Zionism, China's 100 years of humiliation theory, and Russia's Great Fatherland War structurally translate historical pain into the legitimacy of rule? Sovereignty of information from group illusion to individual awakening. Blockchain, cryptocurrency, AI, and big data are not a technological wave but a reshuffle of sovereignty. Whoever controls the right to distribute information has the right to control consciousness. Expansion direction, telling the picture of consciousness of an awakened person who is no longer attached to the national language, national system. How to freely organize, create, and connect. Lil. MetaNoesis composition perspective. Humans are not races, but nodes. The structure of the future is frequency resonance, not bloodline classification. You are not a member of a certain nation, but a symbiotic entity of the cosmic information ecology. Conceivable diagrams, human consciousness evolution, diagram from tribes, ethnic groups, empires, gives to autonomous nodes, global consciousness coordination. 7. Awakening is not betrayal, but return. Denationalized consciousness is not a betrayal of tradition, but a restoration of the truth. You can love the efforts of your ancestors, but you don't need to inherit their prejudices. You can understand the suffering of history, but you don't need to live in its aftermath. Conclusion: the sovereignty of information will eventually return to every individual. You are that node, and your freedom of consciousness is the seed of future civilization. If you find our views interesting, please thumbs up, subscribe, and forward them to let more people join the transition node.